We've shipped product to 35 countries. I've got over 5 megawatts on the ground installed and generating energy. And as I go through the meetings with folks and the emerging economies of the world, and I talk to these folks and they say, we need power. How are we going to get it, right? The problem is always access to capital. It's not that they need it. It's not that they have an audience for it. They just don't have access to capital. So we looked at that market and said, what if we were able to use an ICO, use the crowd, use the community of socially motivated investors or purchasers of the token to help fund these projects so that the community can now have a voice in what gets done and how these things get installed. So in presenting that to my colleagues around the world, we've now come up with a sales pipeline of over 200 megawatts. Now what does 200 megawatts mean? It's hundreds of thousands of homes, it's small businesses, it's, in many cases, it's utility companies that then will distribute to their constituents. And it also means serious revenue for Impact PPA. Typically a megawatt is about $1 million, $1.2 million installed. So if you do the math, we're looking at about a $250 million revenue stream out of just the projects that we've teed up through existing relationships, pre-blockchain, all right? So what we do is we've built a company on 3 pillars, right? Starts with products and projects, where I've got a hybrid energy solution using wind turbines and solar panels. As I said, it's been deployed in over 35 countries, 5 megawatts, robust and working. The projects range from anywhere from throughout Africa, developing nations, Argentina, Caribbean, right? The Caribbean alone, they spend 50 cents a kilowatt hour. We spend 10 cents in the US. I make it for 6 cents. So think about the margin there in the Caribbean market. In Africa, we're replacing diesel generators. Diesel fuel, diesel generation is typically anywhere from about 35 or 40 to upwards of 55 cents a kilowatt hour. Again, I make it for 6 cents a kilowatt hour. The next piece that we have is the financial platform. And what that is we're not just going out and saying we're going to install renewable energy, we're going to find a customer. We're building a platform that allows people to go in and create their own power purchase agreements, or PPAs. So anyone with a need for power anywhere can say, I want to install a megawatt from my village. I need 100 kilowatts from my small business, whatever that might be. They submit it through our platform. The community then looks at it, determines whether it's a viable project or not. If so, it gets funded, and then we have the long tail revenue stream. It allows this company to scale. It becomes truly an energy platform using the blockchain. All of it's verified on the blockchain. And then our energy model, our currency, is a 2-token model. Base token, we call it the MPAQ, MPAQ, which then can be staked and create a secondary or derivative token, which we call the NRG. That's how end users in market will buy power from us. So this is some of the stuff that we've done. Real quickly, we've got a couple of megawatts running in Argentina that you see on the left, right? That was a project that was really interesting. It was done outside of Buenos Aires, and we put up 2 megawatts in between 2 highways, unused land, right? Turned it into a revenue source for them. Connects to the grid, selling power at 25 cents or so a kilowatt hour, making money on it. In Haiti, we're doing 42 cities. We all know about Hurricane Maria and what happened to Puerto Rico. A year before that, Hurricane Matthew wiped out Haiti. And so that whole west coast is without power. We've got 42 microgrids that we're installing for them right now. And one of the keys to what we're doing is we're using the blockchain, connecting this to a smart meter so that an end user can now connect to their home through this smart meter with renewable energy and buy power on a pay-as-you-go model, right? That's the key to what the blockchain can now afford us to do. Monitor that generation and monitor that payment and that trust all the way through the value chain so that you can have a smart meter on your cell phone, you connect to your home. So just like adding minutes to your phone plan in third world countries, we're adding energy. First time it's been done. Then we've got a bunch of other projects, Somaliland, Argentina, there's more coming. I got an email yesterday from a group out of Dubai. They want to do 50 megawatts on schools on a pay-as-you-go model. We put it up, we just generate revenue for 20 years. It's a real simple model. The platform, like I talked about, smart PPAs. What's interesting about that is it's not just energy as it grows. Right now we do wind and solar. We can do hydro. We can do geothermal. What if somebody comes to us and says, I need cold food storage for my village? I'm willing to pay on a power purchase agreement or a personal power agreement. We can provide benefit to individuals, to communities, to governments all over the world, all governed by the same blockchain-driven platform, and generate revenue, right? The community of token holders, token purchasers, end up being the voice in this community, end up being the arbiters of what makes sense for us to use this capital and how we're going to use it, how we're going to deploy. So it democratizes energy all over the world. And our energy currency. So I'm sure you guys all know or you've heard of the two-token model, like a Gnosis model, where we take a base token that is freely traded on the exchange. We give the end user or the owner of those tokens the ability to stake it or bond that token, essentially taking it off of the exchange, locking it up. Then they can benefit from the pool of capital that is generated by the sale of energy. We create a second token called the NRG. Now, we know how many kilowatts or how much power a system's going to generate. If we do it on an estimation basis, sun and wind, right? So if we say we're going to generate 100 kilowatt hours, we're going to have 100 NRG token available. The token holders can then say, I want to lock up, take it off of the exchange, that impact token, and participate in the pool of revenue that's being sold to the end users in these markets. Or they can say, I'm going to be traveling to Argentina, I'm going to need to buy energy, I can take this energy token and freely trade it myself. So we give the end user, that token purchaser, a lot of flexibility in how they use the token, how they monetize the token, or if they just want to be freely traded on the exchange with the base token. So basically it's a two-bite at the apple kind of approach, because investors, token purchasers, many of them have that same motivation, right? How am I going to make money? A lot of folks around here have talked about that. A lot of ICOs out there. But at the end of the day, how do you make money, right? And those ICO companies have to have good, sound business fundamentals, in my opinion. They've got to show to their investors, to their purchasers, to their community, we can make a product, we can make it for X, and we can sell it for Y, and we better hope that Y is greater than X at the end of the day. Because I think there's going to be a lot of ICOs out there that have a nice long runway because they've raised a bunch of money. But what happens when you run out, right? Like the VCs say, I don't want to see any skid marks going over the cliff. Well, our point is there won't be skid marks, right? We're going to generate revenue and make this company self-sustaining. Part of the profits that we get out of the company are fed back into the company for subsequent smart PPAs. So that we expect that this company will get to self-fulfilling or self-financed in a couple of years through the revenue generation of past projects. So we won't need to go back to the well and sell more token. So one of the things that's really interesting about this is the way we can use the efficiencies of the blockchain. We generate energy, as I said, at about 6 to 7 cents a kilowatt hour on the LCOE, which is called the levelized cost of energy. Most countries are either producing or buying energy in that 15, 20 cent range, selling it to their customers 30, 35. So what if we can reduce that cost to the end, to the middleman, if you will, the utility company? They can then pass along those savings to their end users. So we're adding efficiencies by using the blockchain in this method. We also reduce the time that it takes to get into this market. One of the things that we looked at was using the traditional means of financing, the World Bank, USAID, Power Africa, African Development Bank, or any regional development bank, takes years and years to get through. It's a slow process. Using the crowd, we can vet the customer, the community can vet the customer, decide if it makes sense, and then put operational equipment on the ground long before the World Bank would even get around to taking a look at the deal. An example of that is we just did a project in Sudan, did a 0.5 megawatt. The customer took him 6 months to find $500,000. Using the impact PPA model, it would have taken us a matter of weeks to vet him for his credit worthiness. We would already be generating power right now, up and running, and generating revenue for the company. And then another byproduct of that is we reduce corruption. World Bank funds a deal for $100 million. They write a check or a loan guarantee. Cash goes in one direction. We don't know where it ends up, right? A big chunk of that energy budget, or whatever the budget might be, disappears in people's pockets. So what we do is we send equipment. We send hard assets that will end up on the ground benefiting the people who need it most. That's not to say we don't look at the local partners and understand how to work in those regions, because we know that very clearly from a decade's worth of experience, but we can reduce the corruption that's involved. So as I explained earlier, this is the 2-token model, right? Base token called the MPAC trades on the exchange. It gets bonded, it locks up, creating a derivative token called the NRG. The NRG is then used in the market and sold by Impact to the utility company, the proxy, to the end user, to whomever it might be, to generate revenue for the company and give the end user a means by which they can pay for that energy. Okay? And the model is as I have explained it, right? Very simple, very clean, right? We don't want too many layers of complexity, right? We start with the MPAC, it funds the project. Projects get installed, revenue starts to flow back to the company, and then we reinvest in ourselves. We will go out and make sure that this company can continue on without follow-on raises, without subsequent token releases, based on net profits. The ability to go out and perform. And this is something that we've done now all over the world, so the management team gets it. We know what it takes to make money in the renewable energy space. Roadmap, kind of hard to see, but we started this project in May, taking a more traditional renewable energy platform, moving it into the blockchain, creating some code. Happy to show you MVP running upstairs for their NRG token. So where we're at right now is a 200 megawatt pipeline. We have working code. We recently just closed our first seed round of over $1 million. We're working on a pre-sale round now. We will ICO sometime in the beginning of next year when we feel it's ready, right? We expect that upon closing of the ICO, we'll probably have a 12-month lead time to get to final code for the MPAC token, and the real driver being the smart PPA. That's the engine that's going to make this thing a very, very scalable business. This is a bit of the breakdown of the public sale, how those use of funds will be allocated. One of the things that we're doing is we're buying assets and installing assets. So the use of funds from any ICO is going to be to install equipment, which then is a fixed asset for the company, as opposed to, we're going to raise, $10 million or $50 million, whatever it is, and we're not really sure where it's all going to get deployed. We're going to deploy it on the ground. This is going to be used to buy material, to go out, do installations globally, which will then drive the company forward. Management team, many of us are energy guys. We've been doing this for a decade or more. We understand energy generation, renewables specifically, and primarily in the developing markets of the world. That's where we see the most benefit, where energy is not just expensive, but in often cases it's either non-existent or inconsistent. So we can provide real benefit to these countries now and accelerate their quality of life, right? If you have power, you can do more things. You can create economies now. You can create commerce. You can create educational opportunities. On top of all this is layered services, right? So if you have power, now you can have an internet connection. If you didn't have it before, it's kind of hard to connect. So we have a whole host of things that we can start layering on top as we move this business forward. Our development team, and we're all out of LA for the most part. Between LA and India, we got some guys. Our development team's in LA. They've been involved in several ICOs, successful ICOs over the course of the last 24 months. As I said, we have working code running upstairs. Happy to show it to you. MVP is ready. It's just a question of filling out the rest of the team and starting to execute. And that's it. All right. So, anyone got any questions? It's a short presentation. I don't want to burden you. You missed it. Not yet. Not yet.
On these projects that you do, what's the payback period?
The payback period on these projects depends on the displaced cost of energy. So, how much are they paying in market? Typically, we're in that 25-30 cent range for kilowatt on a per kilowatt basis. The ROI is 2.5 years, 2.5 to 3 years.
Project that you might be getting.
Yeah.
What will be the payback on that?
The Dubai project will be a little longer because Dubai government subsidizes energy. So the displaced cost is a little lower, probably closer to 4.5 or 5 years. But it's a 25-year contract. So they pay off in 5, we have 20 years of found money. That's how it works.
Are you looking for people to buy the cryptocurrency or to actually just invest in the company?
We're selling the token, the MPACT token, which is the cryptocurrency, right? That spins off, because the MPACT token, which is the investment vehicle token, right? That will be traded on the exchange. The NRG is minted by the company for the sale of power in a specific market. Okay? If that's it, I think lunch is served. I'm hungry. All right. Thank you.